Hello, hello. Karen Frankel with you on a Friday afternoon in Perth. On Wednesday, I paint with a few ladies here, and I was wondering what subject to do today. And one of the ladies is quite a new artist and a new drawer, and she said to me, I never know how to start a drawing. And so I thought that might be a really good thing for me to mention. Now, I know that I often mention thumbnail plans, and I've definitely done a video on how to plan using a thumbnail to get your drawing. And this is a little bit different to that, so I'm not going to talk about a thumbnail today. I'm talking about when you sit down to draw, and in fact this week I've been taking the students out into the park. We've got a magnificent park here called Kings Park, which overlooks the city and our river, beautiful Swan River, and it has botanical gardens, and all the wildflowers are out now, so it was a gorgeous place to start. So if you're doing that kind of drawing, some people want to know, well, where do I start? How do I start? How do I get this down? And Jasminka, in her video not her video, her very timely email to me, also thought that my email mentioned, which it did, when you've got this big piece of paper facing you, how do you start? And Jasminka read that as working on a big size piece of paper, which I will also talk about because I thought that was a great thing to mention. So that's the picture that I'm going to be using. I will post it in the Facebook page as well, and now I will transfer as usual over to my drawing page there, and you can see me in the corner and the photograph in the corner so that you can get an idea of what I'm going to be working on. So if you've got a picture like that, and you're sitting out in your garden and you're not really interested in drawing a thumbnail and preparing the whole thing, how do you begin? What's a way of beginning? The first thing I would suggest, and this involves you actually making a decision when you start, is what is it that has interested you or is interesting you? What is your focal point, in other words? What are you most focused on? And I think it's pretty obvious in this picture that I took the picture because I was focused on that stunning plant. If anyone knows the name of that plant, I would really like to know. Even the nursery where I bought it, the gardening nursery man wasn't there, so somebody else helped me, and he didn't know the name of it. And it is a succulent, and it is quite an old one. You can see it's very well established. Apparently it has pink flowers, and also apparently if any of those pieces break off, you can just plonk them in the ground and they'll grow themselves. So I thought that would look quite nice in my garden. But you can see that the photograph isn't particularly well, composed. And when I started my painting of it, I just thought I would add in bits and pieces like the nasturtiums around there. And in the top right hand corner, those tiny, tiny flowers are called Geraldton wax. They are an Australian wildflower. No, my apologies. Not a wildflower, but a indigenous flower local to to WA. Hi, Rita. Nice to see you joining in this afternoon. Okay, so you start with the main focus. That is, it's pretty simple. You can go away now. I've told you the answer. You start with the main focus. But it's not really as simple as that. It's a little bit more complicated, but not really much more. Basically, what you need to decide on is how much of the rest of the picture you're going to do. And the reason for that is because you need to know how big to make it on your page. So if you're filling the whole page, then you pretty much start from the middle so that you've got an idea of where to go with it. If you start with the bottom of it, so I'm pretending that I'm doing the whole page, and if I start with that bowl, then I am not going to be able to fit all the beautiful, the big area of plant which goes right the way around. So the best way of starting is to look at the middle of what it is that you're looking at. So the middle of the plant being there, and if I'm including the bowl, I mean the middle of the whole circle that the plant is fitting on. And you can actually draw that whole circle on your page, not a problem. Then you can tell, and you may need to use your pencil, you know, when I measure with my my fingers, that's in the book. So when you, even if you try and do it by eye, estimate where the middle of this plant is, and you will see that the middle, if the plant is there and the bottom of the bowl is there, I'm just looking to see if you can see this on your screens, the bottom of the bowl is there, then the middle I'm looking for is the middle between the top of the plant and the bottom of the bowl. So you need to establish where the middle is of whatever you're drawing. So if you're drawing a still life, try and see where's the highest thing finishing, where's the lowest thing finishing. You can also look at where's the rightmost item and where's the leftmost item. That's not appearing on your screen. There you go. And where is the middle of that as well? And that will give you a starting point. So a starting point on your page, regardless of the size of your page. But you do need to relate the middle of your drawing to the middle of your page. Now, if I were drawing that whole picture, then the middle of the page, or so I'm representing the photograph there in that square. I would say the middle of the, well, clearly the middle of my square is in the middle, but where is the middle of the photograph? And if I relate it to the middle of the photograph, the middle of the photograph is right on the edge of the plant, so the plant would actually fit about there. So you do have to look, observe, and work out what it is you want to draw, and usually you have a focal point, a reason for drawing it. If you want to follow my composition rules that are either in the book or in videos that I've done before, then you can follow the rules of thirds. But I wanted to simplify today so as to not follow those particular rules, but just say, where am I going to start? So choose what your focal point is. What is it that you want to draw? Where's the middle of that thing that you wanted to draw? And put that in the middle of your page so that you've got space around. I can say goodbye now. I've told you the complication. Okay. Why do I say start in the middle? Because first of all, I showed you, because you judge the bottom of it possibly as too big. If you start in the middle, you can work out from that middle. So I'm just mucking around here. I'm not really drawing what I'm looking at terribly much. But I've got a rough idea, if I'm starting from the middle, of how to expand out from it. So again, if you're starting with a still life, you would start from the middle item, just checking that you can see. Now, if you start from the middle item, you wouldn't then go to an item way over here or way over there. You always move from the first thing you've drawn, let's say that is the middle, to the thing that's next to it. I don't know what I've drawn there. I'm just making things up. And then to the next thing that's next to it. The reason we are doing all of this is, I should have got a still life picture. I'm just making up nonsense here. The reason you work from the middle out is because you've established the proportion of your first item, and then the next one is relative to that, and then the next one is relative to that, and they all work together with each other. Okay, there's a bottle behind here, a can or something. I'm drawing a bit of nonsense there. But that's why you start from the middle. Don't jump around your picture all over the shop, because your proportions will go out. You won't have this lovely sort of connected nature of everything that's on your page. So if I go back to drawing the plant, I keep on interrupting myself, don't I? Let's say now my new sketchbook is small and it's that big so that you can see it on your screens there. So it's going to be in the middle here. Now it doesn't have to be in the middle of my page. I can shift it somewhere else on the page if I want to follow composition, but I'm still going to use the middle of my focal point. So, oops, I just bumped my camera. That's because my dog is still on my lap, aren't you, Smudge? That's my excuse anyway. So you don't have to start in the middle of your page as long as you know that you've got room. So if I wanted to put that flower that you can see in the bowl there, but I want to put it on the side, I can put a middle there and I can put a circle round. Now I've got somewhere to draw from. Actually, this is a really nice subject for negative shape. So you can see the negative shape around the edges of the flower. Can you see? So when you put things like a circle on there, don't draw it with a hard line, because you're never going to get rid of that. So do as I say, not as I do. I'm demonstrating what not to do in a lot of cases. And in fact, I'm drawing this a little bit big if this is the size that I'm going to do. So I'm just going to make my pencil marks much smaller. And I actually contradicted myself. I started doing the edge instead of working from the middle. So that it's not a hard and fast rule. This is just one way. But it is quite an interesting way because it will allow you enough room on the page. I think what a problem with drawing like this sometimes is that we don't observe enough and we don't think about what we're going to do before we launch into the drawing. And we find, oh, we haven't left enough room. You know, that might be the bottom of the board. I might have, you know, start my drawing here and I haven't left enough room on the side, and all of that sort of thing starts happening. So it is quite important to take some time. Doesn't have to be long, it can be a minute or two, to make a decision about what you want to draw and work out the proportion and the size so that you can place your interest, your focal point, on to your paper. So I'm not particularly referring to previous videos where I've done composition with you and rule of thirds, although I did want to put it in the bottom corner of my little sketchbook, just in case my sketchbook is that side. Now, size. What else I can do now is, once I've done my focal point, is I can choose what I want to surround it with. Okay, so I've got my sketch there. I've actually drawn in quite firm lines, mostly so that you can see what's going on there. Now I can decide, do I want that spiky plant in the background? Do I want the railings? Do I want that wall going back? Now, I can see in the photograph the wall is actually over here. Does that suit it? Or do I want railings right the way across? How do I want to complete this? And do I actually want to complete it? Or am I just enjoying myself sketching and not worrying about the nasturtiums that are in there and all of that sort of thing? Surprisingly, when I started painting this is the location that I put for the beginning of my painting, that I decided to add the nasturtium shapes on the side here in my painting. So just because it's a garden, a garden that you can see and you photographed, or any subject actually, just because that's what the photograph looks like, that does not mean to say you have to draw it the same way. You can change. Now, I've drawn these things from my head. I've hardly looked at that photograph. My head takes over because I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking about what I'm saying to you. Well, that's my excuse anyway. And if I look at the size of these nasturtiums with reference to the size of these leaves, they're actually quite small. So my leaves would be much, much smaller. And in this mess, they all look the same. So this is a demonstration of how to go about it and how to start. So I'm turning my page around like this so that I can start afresh. So the two things that you have to do are decide what you're going to draw. What's the reason for you wanting to draw it, so that you don't get overwhelmed? What's the attraction for you, either when you take the photograph or when you're looking? What actually is it that you want to draw? Start there and find out where the middle of that thing is so that you can place it on your paper. I'm now going to come to the second part, which is what Jasminka has asked me, and that is, we're all very used to drawing on, this is an A3 book, but I'm usually drawing about A5 size or A4 size maybe, and Jasminka was asking how to work on a bigger piece of paper. And part of the answer to that is it is an attitude and a mindset. So when we are faced with a small piece of paper like this, and we've got our pencil with a small tip on it, or a pen with a small tip on it, it's very easy to draw small, and it's not particularly easy to draw large. And Jasminka did comment that it was more suited to charcoal or a paintbrush, where you've got a big canvas or you've got a big piece of charcoal and you spread that along. So I wanted to introduce you to a couple of my friends. And these friends, actually here's a friend as well. Although this is compressed charcoal, I've spoken about it before, even though this isn't a stick of charcoal. And these three items here, that's a smaller version of this. That was either cut in half or it broke in half. It's actually called a graphite crayon. I'm not sure if it's called that all over the world. And the whole thing is graphite. And if I did that, you can see that the whole side of it draws. That one's easier to push down on. I know that some of them are water soluble, and I absolutely love the ones that are water soluble, especially the very dark ones. It's smudge going down. I had a 9B that I could dissolve with water, and it's absolutely delicious. But what these allow you to do, even when you draw and hold it like a pencil, is to have a big feel for your drawing, so that you can't actually draw tiny with these. Now, by the same token, this is also a graphite pencil, and it's a woodless graphite pencil, so it doesn't have any wood. And even though the point of it is not that different to a pencil that is in wood, there's almost a psychological effect of not having a tiny piece of graphite there. Let's see what Heather says. Knowing that it's not going to be exactly as the photo is liberating and gives you more confidence. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well said. So this particular pencil has got a paint over it. So the whole thing, the graphite, if I do that, nothing will happen. But if I have my hand over the top like that, you can see I can get a big area of graphite down. And there's something, as I said, a bit psychological about drawing with this. I don't ever bother sharpening these. I don't mind that rounded tip there. That's about as sharp as I need. Now, the biggest recommendation, now I know that you can't see my whole book. The biggest recommendation I have for you for drawing on larger pieces and getting into that free attitude is to draw from your shoulder. So you can see, I know you can't see the whole of me, but you can see me moving my arm across, and you can see it going over the page. So very often when we're drawing, we're leaning forward, your wrist is on the table, and you are doing tiny movements like that, and sometimes just with your wrist. So in my classes, I get people to have a board on their lap, and that allows them to draw. It's very similar to being on an easel, but even when you've got this flat, if you allow your whole arm to move, it's an attitude thing, right? So I'll get my big utensil. Is that the right word? My big tool, my big drawing tool, and I can draw nice and big. Let's put some of those spikes in. Okay, and I'm actually moving my arm and not just my wrist. So this again gives you the same sort of attitude with this big piece. Oh, that's gone right down my back. Can you see, just by the by, that where the graphite is, the charcoal is not taking? No, you can't see that very well. I can see that. Can you see the shine on that? I'm not sure if you can. There's a bit there, you can see the shine. If I put my charcoal above that, on top of it, it's where the graphite is, it's not grabbing the charcoal. But yes, so this gives you a nice big attitude to draw big on a big piece of paper. So Jasminka, I hope that helps too. And that's pretty much all the lesson is for today. I hope that's been helpful. So to recap, obviously there are many different ways to start. You can put a grid on your photograph, you can draw from a grid, you can prepare a thumbnail sketch. You know me, I love my thumbnail sketches, and you plan your little thumbnail sketch and what are you going to do and how is it designed in your thirds and all of that sort of thing. But on a very simple level, decide what the main focus is, the reason you're drawing it, and find the middle of what you're drawing. So if it's a tree, what a horrible lollipop tree is. You should all be shouting at me saying, Karen, the trunk is much smaller than the foliage. I'm sure I've done a video on trees. Find where the middle of that is, and then sort out where on your page you're going to put that middle so that everything fits where you want to, and work from the middle out. Thank you for all the love. It's Karen Frankel signing out, and guess what I'm going to say? Get drawing. See you next time. Bye-bye.